Avengers,
assemble! In the wake of Endgame, some were lost, others regained.
They're good.
What happens next? Stay tuned, true believers, as we try to find out.
Peter Melnick,
Graphic designer, comic book enthusiast, and podcast pontificator, and
I'm Eddie Wilson,
upstate New York radio announcer in the Sullivan Catskills, with an inordinate amount of catching up in his own comic book universe. Ready? It's time for a new episode of The Marvelists.
Welcome, everyone, to The Marvelists, the Marvel Universe podcast. I'm Peter Melnick.
And I'm John Sherburne.
And Eddie Wilson is on assignment inside of a random SHIELD helicarrier. Before we get into the usual rigmarole of today's episode, we are going to be telling you all how you can get a hold of us on them thar social medias. How, Eddie would say if he was here.
How?
Well, first off, go on Facebook. First off, go on Facebook at facebook.com/The
Marvelists. Oh, I'm saying it.
That too. You're finishing my sandwiches for me, man.
That's what I was going to say.
I really did not think I'd make a Frozen reference today as we talk about this, but it is available on Disney+, much like the topic at hand will be. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at The Marvelists. You can find us on a wide variety of streaming platforms, including TuneIn Radio, Stitcher Radio, Podbean, SoundCloud, Spotify, you name it, we're there. You can also rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast. Well, not really share it, but you get my point. iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe. There we go. 5-star if you're ever so inclined. Beaten dead horse, ice cream machine, McDonald's. You can also support this here fine program on Patreon at patreon.com/The Marvelists. And for as little as $3 a month to as high as $8 a month, you can help support this show and get some goodies along the way. For $3 a month, you can get our undying gratitude and a newsletter that may eventually come to pass once again. But again, undying gratitude. We love you. We really love you.
We love you.
I like that shirt you're wearing. It's a great shirt they're wearing,
so
right?
Pretty. You're so pretty.
Can you believe that we have so many listeners in a nudist colony? It's amazing. You can also support this show for $5 a month, where when you do that, you get access to the Fantastic Voyage. And I'd be remiss to also say, by the way, $3 a month gets you early access to episodes as well. Ooh. So you get early access to episodes, including this one, a day before it's supposed to launch, as well as for $5, you get the Fantastic Voyage, where myself, Eddie, and John all talk about the 102 plus annuals plus whatever we got up our sleeves of the Fantastic Four by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. For our February episode, we're going to be covering Fantastic Four number 6, I believe, correct?
Think so.
And it's going to be with our special guest co-host, Marvel editor Tom Brevoort, a man of many hats, especially the one that he always wears that's pretty badass. It looks good on him. Also, in our February episode, we may very well have a special guest in regards to Marvel as well. No spoilers, but you're going to like this one. It's a previous guest from an interview from last year who might have a project in the works at Marvel Comics. So there.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting.
$8 a month gets you the ability to pick a topic of your own choosing, and if we think you don't suck, we're going to bring you on board as a special guest co-host, much like common friend of the show, jacked up Jeremy Bagley. I don't know why I said common friend of the show. It's a friend of the show. I'm a jackass.
He's a rare.
I know
friend
I'll get a
of the
text.
show.
Ooh, I like that. He's like a shiny holographic Charizard. I had 4 of those in my life, and I cannot tell the story enough of how I got them, but we're a little pressed for time today, so I will not be telling that story. I'd be remiss, though, if I did, but whatever. But I'll get a text from Jeremy, him yelling at me saying, "Common friend!" But I am waiting for that text. That's going to be pretty great. Anyway, so like I said, support the show, patreon.com/The Marvelists. So now, John, this week on the podcast, we are going to be talking about episodes 1 and 2 of I was going to say Ultravision. What is wrong with me? Anyway,
Ultron
that protein
Vision,
bar
that would
really
be horrible.
That oh my god!
Imagine.
Well, you know,
still a romance. They're kissing and stuff.
WandaVision has debuted on Disney+, both the first 2 episodes, and a lot of people are going on about it with what it could mean for the future. And we're going to go right off the bat. We're going to talk about episode number 1. First off, I'm loving that the Marvel Studios logo goes black and white, utilizes a drop shadow on the lettering, and even degrades the sound quality. And if I suspected Were they going for like a film grain stock like that?
Yeah, I think they definitely were. If you even just like the entire, the thing I like is except for the credits, everything else is totally on brand. Even the opening title sequence like that. And I love that they were going for that vibe. I also like how little they're giving away from this show. Like most television shows, I've done a couple different shows where we analyze television, right? You can see the titles, sometimes even the description of the next episodes. You can see what the cast members are that haven't been introduced yet. And in this show, they're doing none of it. Their episodes are titled Episode 1, Episode 2. If you go online, you cannot find what the third episode's titled. You cannot find a description of it, which is super rare. So I was very excited to see that. It made me very happy to know that I was, again, you can't spoil it for yourself at all. So I like that a lot.
And one of the things about this show is each episode is done in the style of a certain genre or a certain show from its time period.
Yeah, time period from television.
And this one is the 1950s. We're going for like Honeymooners. We're going for I Love Lucy. Phil Silver's show even. Just a lot of stuff like that era. And, growing up as a kid, I used to watch a lot of reruns on, Fox 5 when they would air I Love Lucy at noon during the week. That was like one of my go-tos as a kid. So like,
Stay Home Sick.
That's why like you'll hear certain references on the show I'll make to things. I made a reference to the Dumont Network to Eddie the other day, and he looked at me like dead-eyed, like I don't know at all what you're talking about. The Dumont Network, by the way, was a television network in the 1950s, and I was really dating myself, and I'm 32 years old, but I digress. And, like I said, the utilization of these kind of shows like TV Land, Nick at Night, that was what I grew up on. So being able to see this style of show this episode done in that style of show was really great to see.
Yes. I'm excited similarly for like the 90s, 2000s episode. I think this is going to be really interesting. I like that you're going to, as the show moves forward, you're going to watch it change a lot. Like that's the one thing I'm excited for is we're guaranteed a lot of different stylistic motion. And so I really think they're going to take advantage of that. And I really think that's going to be one of the enticing like meta aspects of the show consistently is that's what the humor is. The rest of it's so creepy and weird. The humor stems from the fact that it's also full of references and full of stylistic decisions that are kind of mind-blowing when you see it. You're like, oh, I know what that's from. I know what that television show is or whatever, Yeah,
absolutely. And with this one, it's, of course, the, oh, my God, honey, the boss is coming to dinner. Because we're talking about August 23rd is the date. There's a little heart on the calendar. And they're trying to figure out what it is, what is the meaning behind it. And that's it. So.
No, it's fun. I like I think like the cliche reveals and the idiocracy. The tropes. It's the characters are the causing their own pitfalls and things like that. It's stuff that would in a normal show feel ham-handed, right? And it would feel overdone. But in this show, given that we know that's what they're doing on purpose, they can get away with plot lines or ideas or whatever dialogue that otherwise would not be acceptable anymore. Just because it's funny.
In regards to like, the tropes and everything, one of the first things is the wacky next door neighbor of Agnes coming into the door, doing a grand introduction. Catherine Hahn, who, hand to God, did a phenomenal job on this series.
Really
so
good.
Far. Like just 2 episodes in and she is the MVP of it,
Yes.
Very she's not underutilized, like she's there, and when she is, she eats up that scenery in the style of each era that she's representing.
She feels smarter than most of the other characters too. Like I feel like there's a level of not meta knowingness, but it feels almost like she's in on it more so than the main characters are so far, which I think's really interesting. And also
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah, like something feels not off, but just like she knows, like everyone else feels like they're a victim of this, and I don't get that vibe from her at all. I feel like she's either in on it or at the very least happy to be there.
Let's fast forward to episode 2 real quick, because you say that whole sense of meta, self-awareness, breaking the fourth wall. When she remarks to Wanda, as Wanda is looking at the in the rose bushes with the little helicopter, which, by the way, that's got the sword logo on there. Yes. So Sword is involved with this series.
Same with the first episode.
Exactly. And she remarks to her, "There's the star of our show."
Mm-hmm. And is that a writer decision, or is that her? Like, is it just a
I
funny
think that's
line,
breaking the fourth
or
wall.
is it her character knowing that? And because the thing
It's
with
breaking the fourth wall.
Well, the thing with the fourth wall is, in this show, the fourth wall is more important, because if Wanda is creating the sense of seeing, that fourth wall is still in the show. You know what I'm saying? Her breaking the fourth wall could be a joke for the audience, but it could also be a part of the plot, right? A part of the fact that she might know what's going on. So I love that. Again, the meta part of this show is not meta outside of the show. The meta is in the show. When they make jokes about it, it's in universe, because the show takes place in a show, pretty much, you know?
We're watching a person watch this show who is watching them in a show. So
Yeah,
we're watching a show about a guy watching a show. And the show is the product of somebody's
Show.
just it's so insane. And that's, again, where this might be, and it's odd to say within like just 2 episodes already, but this might be the start of something beyond incredible with what this is going to be. This might be Marvel's Watchmen.
I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited. You know that I'm mixed bag on some of the Marvel content. I like the entirety of it. I like seeing superheroes represented on screen, but some of the movies feel lacking or reductive or like a basic action type thing to me. And so seeing stuff like this makes me very excited, because what I've said is before, if Marvel doesn't start having some nuance and niche and genre bending, you're going to lose its appeal fast. Because we've already been through one whole series, so the average consumer might stop being interested. So doing stuff like this is so important to me, and I really feel like they're on the front end of, I've said this before and on other shows and stuff, that I think the future of entertainment is mixed media, and I really think that Disney's on the front end, Star Wars and Marvel, of trying to make universes outside of one medium. And I think you're going to continue to see more and more crossover now that everything's streaming. I really think it's important. So I love this show's one of my favorite Marvel things so far. We'll see how they go with it, but this idea I love more than I expected.
And the other thing about this as well is in regards to, we don't know what's going to happen, but a common complaint about the Marvel product of the MCU is cookie cutter. It can be very cookie cutter at times. Like, I love the Avengers movies, but to be honest, you see one, you know what's going to happen in the next one. That's why I do enjoy where certain movies will completely do a 180 on what the standard tropes of these movies are. And you have like a Guardians of the Galaxy, which is its own thing. It's not your standard comic book movie. You have Winter Soldier, which Winter Soldier is just a political thriller. You have, it's weird, stuff like that. You have the Ant-Man movies, which are borderline heist movies.
Yes.
And they're their own different thing. And even like, what's it called? Thor Ragnarok.
I was gonna say Thor Ragnarok. Buddy Cop's very interesting. But yeah, I think you're right.
And with this is a dissection of television.
Well, it's weird seeing people like Vision, and I think Vision's the best example of it. I think it's weird seeing some of these actors in a comedy, right? Like, you've seen moments of comedy, but they're action movies, and you're seeing. I mean, I think Paul Bettany does a great job. Like, I really
Paul
think
Bettany stole the show.
Vision's character is like the best. It's so funny because he clearly doesn't fit, and I think it's good for a few reasons. Because if you are part of there's a theory that Wanda's maybe creating all of this. Her getting him not wrong, but him being out of place feels so right, because he is a robot. He is the only thing that's not actually maybe a person in this, right? So if that's the case, it fits so well, and so much of his humor sticks because not only is he the sore thumb character that's sticking out, but he's also, since he's a robot, right, actually sticking out of otherwise a show that would never have robots in it so far. And so these episodes are so classic 50s, and then there's a robot, and it sticks out so much, and it's so much humor can come from it.
And another thing is how natural he is in regards to this performance of being in a sitcom. And like, in regards to this, I like how the performances of the actors go all in on the sitcom style that they perform to the audience. Like you'll see them motioning towards the audience, doing the little glances at an audience.
Yes.
And, you know, like the biggest one is when in the first episode they are in the office. And before Mr. Hart shows up, they're talking to the communist. And, you know, like the one part is like Vision gets up and he just starts doing something that I've seen on so many sitcoms throughout my life. Like, you know, How I Met Your Mother or like even Sanford and Son. Just, you know, two completely different shows, but they still have that sitcom live audience feel. You see him just turning and looking around at his surroundings, like over exaggerated. And that was like one of the biggest things for me. And I'm also curious about this. The laugh track. Are they going to acknowledge it and break the fourth wall? Are they going to go
scared if the laugh track is people who are being forced to sit there and laugh? That would be such a good creepy moment, but I would be scared if that happened. That's such a freaky concept to me. And it depends, I think, on where they take the show. Like, it depends on where they actually decide to go with it. What is happening? I think if it's, you know, if it's fake simulation, then that would be cooler. If it's Wanda controlling it, scarier, because that's real people, you know?
I'll go with something even worse.
Yeah, sure.
Dead people. Because one of the comments is you watch, like, I Love Lucy and you hear the laugh track. That's an audience of dead people.
Yeah, no, it's totally canned.
It's so, like, it's unnatural. That's why, like, I love when MASH came to DVD. I like MASH. I'm
MASH
apparently a 65-year-old man.
No,
yeah,
MASH
but
is
it's
good.
like,
I like MASH growing up.
well, one of the things about MASH is the laugh track, and it seems so unnatural for that kind of show.
Yes.
But luckily, you know, on the DVD releases, they've like you have the option to change the commentary track to no laugh track.
That's cool.
And it's a great feature, but it's like I feel a laugh track is a little unsettling with this, and it works so well.
Well, and
that.
I think we should start getting into some of the themes and theories and Easter eggs.
Yes.
I think because there's so many. I mean, that's one of the other things I'd say about the show is it is full. There's not. I was afraid it was going to be kind of empty, and it is so full of hints and things, and some people are even saying that it's done on purpose. I think a very interesting, I'm very torn, is someone doing this to her, or is she doing this to other people and they're trying to stop it? And if it's the latter of those two things, it becomes creepier, where it's when it's people like, when people are breaking the wall and they're saying like, who's doing this to you, that kind of thing, as opposed to it being someone creating it, it's people trying to help her, which is scarier to me, where it's like, snap out of it, and she can't. And that is, to me, so freaky. And so I think it's really interesting how they use the Easter eggs as an actual plot point.
Well, let's go with one of the first things, the television commercials. And Kevin Feige has gone on saying that these television commercials play a major part, obviously, in the story. And, you know, there's 2 points I saw on Reddit. The toaster in the Stark commercial has the repulsor sound effect, like when they, you know, put the toast in. And somebody made a remark. The commercial, Strucker for the watch, but going back over to the toaster real quick.
Okay, another thing for that.
They might also be referencing how robots and cyborgs in science fiction are referred to as toasters.
Could be.
Somebody pointed that out, and I'm like, yeah, that actually makes perfect sense. Why would you have a toaster in your cyborg show? Like, no other reason. It's that. But did you also, like, obviously it's one of the little things, like the one element of color. Red plays such a important part in the story in these first 2 episodes alone. And, you know, red means, what's his name? American Beauty, you know?
Oh,
the color red over and over and over. Yeah, Kevin Spacey. But.
Well, red, I feel like the red usually comes up when she's losing it a little so far. And that's going to, I'm curious how, now that there's color, if that's going to change. But so far it's moments like with the helicopter, which there's a lot of theories about what that helicopter is. Was it a real helicopter that got turned into a toy? Is it like, what's going on to the helicopter? When she bleeds is when she starts freaking out and the glass breaks and she's bleeding. So or when she turns the whole place color, the first thing you see is Vision's head. And so it usually feels like when she loses control of her powers, or when she's not doing a good job of keeping up what's happening, you tend to see red, is what I've noticed.
Well, what about on the toaster? The red on the
That's
toaster.
the one
light.
part that I haven't been able to figure it out. Or maybe it's she's creating the commercials in her head, and that red is something outside of her reality or something like that. It seemed like a timer. It was going to explode, beeping faster and faster. And to me, that was that moment of like, this isn't just a toaster commercial. That wouldn't happen in a black and white toaster commercial. So to me, that was some more of that, like the real world bleeding through kind of thing.
Now, what do the ducks mean that Tony Soprano was feeding in the very first episode of The Sopranos? I wrote a paper in college about that. We had that as a topic, so
send me that.
I gotta find it, but I do have it somewhere.
Oh, send me that. I love The Sopranos. Please do.
But I digress. Anyway, what other Easter eggs have you noticed in this?
Oh, there's a lot. First off, the fact that Monica Rambeau is in the show is crazy. She was in
as Geraldine.
Yeah, she was in. Well, yeah, no.
Wait,
Tiana
that's
Paris.
not Geraldine?
Tiana Paris plays the character Monica Rambeau, who was in Captain Marvel.
Right. The she's now older.
Yeah, she's an adult now. And she's in
and
it, which
is,
blows my mind. Which just dates this a little bit. It adds like the character into as Pulsar or maybe the next Captain Marvel into the universe. That was a really big moment that I thought was super cool.
Now she is the one that she meets at the little dinner party with Dottie, correct?
I think she's the woman who's doing the
talent show.
Yeah, she's in the background of the talent show and stuff like that.
That's her.
She meets
as
her
well,
at Dottie. Yeah, she meets her at Dottie's. Yeah.
And she goes on, but she says she's Geraldine. And I'm wondering if that's like a subtle nod to Flip Wilson, the comedian of the 1960s, 70s, who would, he would dress in drag and perform as a character called Geraldine.
But
I'm curious about this.
In the cast, her name's Monica Rambeau, and when she says Geraldine, she looks at the camera for a second.
Yes, she does. And
she says, "What's your name?" And she goes, Geraldine. And then if you look at the cast list, there's no Geraldine. There's a Monica Rambeau who's played by Tiana Paris, who's the person that's the character. So that was there's moments like that where
I didn't notice that with the looking to the camera.
Yeah, it was. She just paused at the very least. She didn't have her name ready. She paused. So what does that mean? Does it mean she's planted in this? Is she an agent, right? If you look at Captain Marvel movie, I could see her maybe taking the agent route. I'm not convinced that this is something Scarlet Witch is doing herself. A part of me feels like this is her powers being utilized by either Sword or AIM for a nefarious purpose, or I've also thought about the fact that Vision works at this. It's brought up enough times where I know it's a plot point. He's brought up at this computing company and he keeps asking, "What are we making?" And they're like, "We're just running data," which makes me feel like they're using this to
run like that is
some sort of
important.
data. Like I feel like they're using it to mine data or to like learn figures and facts. I feel like they're having him do that work and having by extension her do that work as a computer. I really feel like that's happening. And so that was my first hint, and there's been a few others of it could be that she's not creating this, but she's being used to create this for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Another thing in regards to the first episode, though, is what I noticed was the change in types of camera angles in the performance of Wanda as Mr. Hart is choking.
Oh my God!
It's an example
like
of everything breaking the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Yes, that was so exactly what I was thinking of.
Which I think is so cool because the rest of it's a comedy, which makes me think. And like, let's say we get to the 90s, is there going to be a cut where it becomes a thriller? It would make total sense with a plot arc of the 90s is going to be like in the second or third act. And so when they get to the 90s, I feel like the second half could turn into like that 90s over-the-top thriller as they start to figure out that they're in a simulation. Like, I feel like they're going to utilize more than just comedy. For example, those Hitchcock shots.
Right.
Oh, so
and,
cool.
like, was it just me, or was that scene, like, on your... Like, I watched it twice, but, like, my first viewing of Vision Stop It, it felt a lot longer.
Scared the shit out of me, dude. I was enthralled. I was staring at my computer. It was Kitty, too, from that 70s show, which made it worse.
Yes, but Kitty Foreman shows up.
I was so uncomfortable during that scene because it was so scary. Like, it was just so, like, no one's helping her. No, I think it's because no one can. Wanda has to tell them to, right? And for some reason, no one's helping. And I think it's because they're waiting for her to make a decision. Will he die or will he live? It's your world. Oh,
yeah.
Damn.
And
so cool.
I just have to go back over to Kitty.
Yeah.
Good. Again, I realize that's not her name. That's the actress's name. That's
Joanna Dean or something. I can't think of what her name is.
She was phenomenal. And let me say this. That woman does not know how to age because she
Deborah
still
Jo
looks
Rupp.
just like she does.
Yeah, Deborah Jo Rupp, and
she's-
she does. She looks maybe a year older. Like she definitely has.
Like,
aged
it's insane. Like, watching that, I'm just like, when she showed up, I had no idea. And I'm just like,
Well. Same.
is Red going to show up and call Vision a dumbass? I don't know. I'm that moment I
I'll
was
stick my
enthralled.
boot
I'm
up your shiny metal ass.
It was so
Classic.
great.
Yeah, it is crazy.
And, let's go over into episode 2. And I would say that episode itself was a love letter to, the Munsters, Addams Family, and Bewitched.
Yes.
Especially the Munsters in the
I
beginning.
think Bewitched too, by parts of the Bewitched.
Oh, yeah, of
obviously
course.
the intro credits and toward the end felt very Bewitched-esque, and obviously the magic aspect.
I would go, for me at least, like, Vision's character is Herman Munster in episode 2.
No, I
like,
can see it.
completely.
Yes.
The biggest one for me was when they have, like, he turns the light on, sees the tree, turns around, and then he screams. That is a Herman Munster moment if I've ever seen one.
It is.
And I'm curious of how they're going to utilize so many other types of television shows, like,
so
in the
excited.
future. Like, 1990s will be a fun one to see because will they do a Seinfeld type?
Oh my god, I hope if there's not a bass riff in the intro sequence to the 90s one, I'm gonna be mad. Or a Full House, like the external shot. That would be perfect, obviously, for a few reasons. There's a lot they could do.
But a Seinfeld one
That'd
would
be
be
awesome.
so great.
That'd be
that's why,
awesome.
like I said, in regards, we ran a poll on our Twitter, and episode 2 got a resounding positive feedback.
Yes.
Personally, I liked episode 1 a lot more, but
I like 2 more, so that's interesting.
I think it's more because, like, again, I was raised more on the
Yes.
50s sitcoms, so
You can look
seen
back
a lot
at
of that.
it, yeah.
But in regards to, we got to talk about the ending of this episode at least. Like, that is one of the biggest
And then I want to
things.
get into some of our our personal theories of things we noticed. But yes, I agree.
Then let's go later on talk about the ending. But, like, I do love how you have the opening theme music of this episode being, again, Bewitched style.
Yes.
And they incorporate a lot of animation in this. Like, when we see the inner workings
His
of
stomach.
Vision, with the cogs and everything.
Yes.
I would say that's also partially a reference to the Flintstones. Like, you have the utilization
Yeah.
of animation. Like, it's not entirely, I'm surprised they didn't do a whole segment other than the opening theme song of animation. They could have done that.
I think they
But I'm
wanted to
curious.
maybe not. I do get it. I think it might have taken away from some of the tension. I believe this show's whole point is throughout the show will continue to rise tension more and more and more and more. And so I do think having a 2 or 3 minute scene where everyone's cartoon might take some of that out. So I think they did a good job of hinting at it, putting it in there, but not taking away from the plot. So
Well, on the topic of cartoons, then, do you think if we get to a 90s episode, they'll feature a reference, like, to The Simpsons? 'Cause
potentially, if I could see that being the intro, potentially though, if the one thing I'll say is potentially you could see if they take the route of getting more serious with time, I could actually see them having less humor the farther you go. But if they keep with the comedic elements throughout, I could see them having the Simpsons intro for sure in the style with the characters involved. I'd actually like that. a lot.
So you're saying as it keeps going on and on, it's going to be less and less funny. So you
Potentially,
mean the show Friends?
Yes, just like
So
Friends.
you mean the show Friends?
Just like Friends.
Yes, absolutely. What an awful, awful show. But gentrification, the sitcom.
Yeah.
Anyway, in regards to with this episode though, episode 2, I would say it's very much the previous one was. What's going to happen with this wacky situation with a
Yeah.
misunderstanding of my boss? The boss is coming to dinner. This one is we have the characters and they're trying to interact with the rest of the world and everyone knows something is off with them, but they aren't quite sure. But
Yes.
like the way Wanda wins over Dottie at the end, like she does a complete 180 and it seems so unnatural.
It does.
Like, when we have her, talking to her while she's, cleaning up the the meeting, and I know what you are. I've heard things about you.
I feel like
And then the
Dottie's
radio goes
important.
off.
I think she's important.
I do too.
I think she is Abigail Brand, director of S.W.O.R.D. They talk too much about how she's
Interesting.
They say she's so important. She knows so much about committees. If you do good with her, you're set. Which makes me feel like if this is a S.W.O.R.D. sanctioned thing, she'd be involved. Like I just feel like Dottie there's this air of she's more than just a person there. They talk for literally 7 or 8 lines of dialogue specifically mention that she runs the show. She runs the place. She's the committee leader. She is the person that will give you anything you want if you get on her good side. I could so see her being a director of some kind outside of it. I could see her being the director of S.W.O.R.D.
And in regards to the character, she has green hair. And this episode is in black and white, so we really don't see that.
I was thinking about that visually. I could see them I'll see them maybe not having her have green hair in the MCU. Personally, I could also see that being the case. They could say something along the lines of having a director have green hair might be something that most audiences don't understand, as in the real world and business and things like that. Doesn't really fly. So I could see them taming the character a bit. But she has that air of like, again, same with the neighbor, where it's like she feels like she's elevated past being a part of it as one of the victims. She feels like she has something greater, and it's also Emma Caulfield of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in 90210, which blew my mind.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely crazy. Emma Caulfield Ford, I guess she's married since, but she was in a bunch of different things, but the biggest two were Buffy and 90210, which if you've seen them, she's Anya.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, crazy.
And it's, I just still can't get over the realization of that might be the director of S.W.O.R.D.
Maybe not. That's my 2 cents.
But it makes perfect sense,
wouldn't
though.
it?
Like, you have that character in with that style of commanding, attitude. And like when you're in a big meeting like that and people are talking to the side, hey, could you shut up? Like, it's that going on.
Yes.
That's, yeah.
And that's my
I don't know where I'm
theory.
going with that.
As of this morning, no one else had said that on Reddit, so I'm claiming that as my theory. If anyone here hears it anywhere else, I hadn't heard of it as of this morning, so I'm claiming it as mine.
Yeah, and it's...
We'll see.
But, that kind of blew my mind just now. Like, and there's, let me check my notes. What else I got?
There's so much. The Beekeeper is big.
Okay,
is
so
the
let's
Beekeeper
talk
sword
about
or
the
AIM?
Beekeeper.
Is it a sword guy who's in a radiation suit trying to not get taken over, or is it an AIM guy dressed naturally?
Could you make out what was on his back?
It looked like a sword logo.
Interesting, because
That's
I
the
was
weird part.
speculating. Yeah, I'm speculating though, maybe because in the comics, AIM members,
Yes.
Advanced Idea Mechanics, are always referred to as beekeepers.
And
like
they
the
look
little,
they look in the yellow suits or whatever.
So, why would you have a beekeeper? And
And a Strucker commercial.
I'm gonna make a remark about this.
Sure.
This show is the Marvel equivalent of Twin Peaks.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
No, it's that like uncanny. I mean, honestly, so far there are some very David Lynchian aspects to the show. So that's why I agree.
Yes.
It feels very unsettling in a way.
It's unsettled. Well, because you have a woman falling in love with a robot, and there's just something about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I could see this being an AIM assignment where AIM has taken her, and you have the Beekeepers, you have the Strucker drop, and there's that line, Strucker will make time for you, that really sat with me weird. That was a line that I've thought about all day, of what is, like, that seems so purposeful. Strucker will make time for you. Well, what does that mean?
And that I'm not sure about. But yeah, and again, Strucker, if I remember correctly, he was the one that was responsible for the experiments that caused
Wanda and Quicksilver, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the case.
Mm-hmm. Someone was saying equally too that again, these all might be false flags. Of it makes it seem like there's
Might be false flags.
It makes it feel like there's people that might be doing this to her, But at the same time, someone else has a theory that this is all in her head, no one else is involved, but the reason that these things are happening is it's her being fed or given or reminding herself of memories. So Strucker watches might be her trying to remind herself of her past. Or, that kind of stuff. So that's the other option. If no one's doing it to her, it could be that. I don't know which one I like more. I don't know which one I believe more. As of right now, I'm leaning towards someone has her because of she's being monitored by Sword. But it could just be that Sword is monitoring this hero who's gone berserk and she's trapped in a cell where she can't alter reality and maybe she gets out of it. Those are kind of the options to me.
Catch her in bed with a synthetic man. But I would say, like, I'm wondering when this takes place. And,
I mean,
with
Monica Rambeau's an adult, so it would be in the modern day, I think, because Monica Rambeau is an adult.
Well, I'm saying in regards to maybe this was taking place during Civil War when, right at the end when they get captured. But they did get captured. I
think. I'm trying to, it could be, people thought this would be in the Soul Stone, but I feel like it's probably not. I think this is post. I don't think they want to go back in time. They have one movie that's doing that with Black Widow. I think they're trying to build up in the future. So in my opinion, this takes place after they all come back. She's returned to existence, but her love is dead. And so she snaps and goes off for whether someone did this to her or she did it to herself. She is now in post Endgame in this reality in her head.
And one of the things about sitcoms is the utilization of catchphrases. Mm-hmm. And during my initial viewing of these, I was like, wait a minute, they don't have a catchphrase for any of these characters. Sitcoms are known for catchphrases. Sure. You have, the unintelligible grunting of Tim Allen on Home Improvement. You have Did I Do That from Urkel from Family Matters. And it dawned on me, there is a catchphrase, and it's been uttered twice in each episode.
Okay.
I don't eat food.
Weird. Yeah,
it's such a bizarre.
I remember
it comes up each episode.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't eat food is the show's sitcom catchphrase.
That's technically it is.
Like, how like on How I Met Your Mother is, have you met? Like that.
Ted?
This is what this is, and it's so weird. But it's I don't eat food. I don't eat food is a catchphrase, and it's so odd. And the other, let's go into also other theories. So like you've been looking up some. I actually found one that kind of interested me because it's a play on words. Okay. What town are they located in?
Westview. Which I was trying to figure out.
Westview might be Wanda's view of the West as she lived in Sokovia.
Weird, yeah.
Because you have, Europeans they'll like see on television.
Yeah, through television only. Wow, that's a good point.
And when I saw Westview, I'm like, that's their view of the West.
That's super smart. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I have, that's crazy. I have one that was kind of weird. It's a little bit nutty, but I could see it happening. So this is episode 2. The plane storyline. In the beginning, they hear something outside making loud noises. They decide it's a tree. Someone had made the idea that maybe it was the sound of the helicopter trying to break in. If this is taking place not in her head, but she actually took a town and put it in a zone. And you could see, potentially, this being what happens. The plane comes in. It's doing the chopper noises outside the window. She says, I'm going to see it, or I'm going to, whatever. And then it stops. And in that moment, it's turned into a toy, and it drops into the bush. And on the side of the plane, it says something like damage, help, or something like that. That was something that was on the plane. Someone else had said that potentially the people that were in the second episode sitting in the neighborhood watch building were the people in that helicopter that had not been killed, but instead turned into people in the town of some kind.
Yeah, ancillary sitcom characters.
Yeah, which would be really interesting. And then what would leave me to believe then that like everyone outside learned that if you just walk in there, you're gonna get, become a part of the fabric of the universe. And so we can't do that anymore. And so at the end, it's not a beekeeper suit. The bees I can't explain, but it's someone going in there in a suit that like blocks out her reality bending abilities so they can infiltrate and see what's going on. That is one line breakdown that I don't know if I believe, but it was a very interesting theory.
What I want to know is why the helicopter was red and gold. And it got me thinking, like, while you were, mentioning about it. I think the red and gold is representing Iron Man.
Could be.
Iron Man is long gone.
Sure, but his stuff's there.
Her logic to her, though, is they'll save us. And Tony is a representation of he will save us.
Yes.
They will save us. So.
Interesting. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to work with, and it's one of those things that you feel like you already have so much of the answer here, as in when the show ends, you can go back to these first episodes and you can almost see what's happening. We don't know it yet.
Yeah.
There's another theory we haven't mentioned at all that has been one of the theories since before the show was even close to coming out, that the fandom is kind of split in half or into thirds, one thinking it's just in her head, one thinking it's being done to her, and the third saying that there's someone pulling the strings, and that person is Mephisto. And I don't know your view on it. I'm curious if you believe it, if you think it's bullshit, there were some lines about, the devil's or whatever around, and she says it's not the only place he is. There's stuff like, there's a couple very weird, demonic, quote unquote, references, and people have talked about Mephisto being behind it. That's why I think Wanda's going to be in Multiverse of Madness. So some people have drawn that line. And I'm curious how you feel about that.
Well, that just blew my mind. That actually makes perfect sense because Mephisto, I believe, is a part of the, I think, the 12-issue miniseries, too, or the 4 or 12-issue, one of them.
Sure. Yeah, that's another option. And I think parts of it have credence. I think what they did on purpose was make it so that all of those theories could be what's happening. And so maybe Mephisto put her under and broke her head. And so she created this and made a town her own and has forcing them to go along with it, and Sword is trying to stop it, and they're at the very least monitoring the situation. And also, AIM is trying to, in the middle of the night when everyone's half paying attention, backdoor their way into it to maybe get a hold of it as well. They made it so that all those things could be happening, and it's just an answer of which one's not the red herring, or are they all a part of something bigger. Red herring.
I'll go with one.
Irony is not lost on me.
Well, in regards to Mephisto,
sure,
maybe she sold her soul. Like they're utilizing the one moment in time storyline of Spider-Man, and this is how it happens. But here's the thing: Vision is a robot. You can put a new pack of batteries inside of that bad boy, and he's good to go. So, who knows?
The question with Vision is the Vision that they can bring back the one that still loves Wanda? How much of that's outside? Because Vision's big thing is he's not a human, but he's also kind of a human. And so they might have been able to bring Vision back, and he didn't remember her and didn't care and didn't want to, and that might have been the thing that pushed her over the edge.
Also, the utilization of the Soul Stone. That's what made him what he was.
Yes. So if the Soul Stone's gone and they've returned it all, then that's it. I think my craziest, not theory, but concept is that the end of the show is not going to showcase what's happening on the outside. My thought is, why is Sword involved? Sword is extraterrestrial stuff. Sword is like big stuff, end game stuff, if you will. And so why would Sword be involved? What might be happening is that this show takes place in the future from the movies we're going to see. And so we're going to see some of the movies coming out this year aren't going to address this. And what I feel like you might see is the reason Sword's involved is because it's too late. She already changed reality. Say she brought in the X-Men as more mutants, or she brought in the Fantastic Four, and you're not going to get that answer at the end of this show. But 4 movies down the line, we're going to find out maybe that this is taking place in the future, and she's already done the reality changing. And so she's maybe changed reality, and then they put her into stasis to try to keep her from changing anything else, or to try to change it back. And this is all them trying to figure that out. That's something I've been toying with as well.
I can see that.
We'll see, man. There's so much. It's so dense. I was nervous to even do this episode. It is so dense.
It's not a chore, but it's very much a daunting kind of thing.
Oh, it's just like shit. What means what? There's Randall Park is in Jimmy Woo. Agent Jimmy Woo was the guy on the radio. Like, there's just so much random.
That was him?
Yeah, he's one of
And
the only.
he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
and he's one of the only people listed in the cast. He's in the cast, Randall Park. So there's just a bunch of that stuff, and he says, "Who's doing this to you?" So that would lead you to believe that maybe Mephisto's involved, and that's happening 2 minutes after they make the devil reference. So there's.
I'm just shocked. I'm just so shocked that Asian Jim Halpert's in here.
Yeah, Jim Halpert is in there.
But we've got a lot coming up, and we hope you'll stay along for the ride as we talk more about WandaVision next week, episode number 3. It's going to be just number 3, correct?
Yeah, they do. A lot of shows are doing this right now, where they'll release more than one thing to get you kind of into it, and then because a lot of times
Doom Patrol did that.
Pilots aren't enough. I think for some people, where the pilot is supposed to be a good setup, but sometimes that setup's not super dramatically appealing, so they have to. They're doing a lot of shows are doing that now.
It's smart.
What do you think this? Okay, we'll wrap it up. What do you think the next storyline is going to be? Like comics based, large scale storyline in the Marvel universe. Do you think House of M? What do you think?
I think it's going to be a mashup of House of M, but you need mutants to actually have House of M.
Reverse
But
House
it's
of
going
M.
to be like a mashup. You can do House of M, but
But
it
they
would
could
be
do
like
a
a
reverse
mashup
one, yeah, where it's she at the end says more mutants as opposed to no more mutants.
no, more mutants.
Yes, exactly.
But
Yeah, so you think House of M matched up with what?
Spider-Verse,
Interesting.
to be honest. Because why is she involved in Doctor Strange too?
Well,
Makes no sense, otherwise.
what I think we're leading into, and this suspicion will be proved wrong or right, based off
Brute force.
based off of what happens in Spider-Man 3. But if Spider-Man 3 features Osborn in it, you're going to see Dark Reign maybe be the next big thing. I could see it happening. Based on everything else that's going down.
Darkwing, you said?
Dark Reign, yeah. I feel like that could...
Dark Reign.
Yes, I could see it happening, but it would only happen if they introduced Norman Osborn in Spider-Man 3. So that is like my...
Yeah.
I've said that for a couple months now that I feel like Dark Reign could be a good storyline, but they'd have to introduce him in the next movie. So if it's introduced, that's where I'm hedging my bet. If not, then I'm not. Maybe House of M or some sort of strange amalgamation of it.
Like I said, there's so much, and like before we wrap this one up fully, I want to also talk about one of the things a lot of people have been talking about with this show. We have to wait a week.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but like that, I love Netflix, but Netflix ruined a whole generation of consumption of entertainment.
there's a benefit to waiting. It's you don't rush through it. If
Yeah.
you rush through it, it's like I guess it's like watching a movie. But when you watch it all at once, there's no tension buildup. Some shows are specifically designed to not be consumed week to week, and they don't have the same cliffhangers that make you think and stuff like that. Those shows have their place. It's called over-the-top production. Over-the-top television is like what the industry term is for it. But there are some shows like the Watchmen TV series or like this where it is built to be watched week to week. There are cliffhangers, there are rises and falls that are purposefully done in that way. And so I think if this show was done back to back, we watched the first 2 episodes back to back. As much as I liked it, it took the wind out of the first episode, having the second one there right after. And the second one, the tension's automatically built and you say, okay, cool. And you kind of wipe your hands from it. I like the week to week. It makes me think about stuff. It allows for fan theories as opposed to, oh, you watched episode 1 and you have a thought. Well, I just finished the series and this is actually what happens. It allows for the fan base to get invested. That's why they do it that way.
And let's be honest, in regards to marketability, in the sense of, and it's a weird thing to say, but memes are a part of marketing now.
Yes.
And when The Witcher came out on Netflix, there was the repeated meme of Geralt, I believe, right? Just going, ugh, fuck. Like over and over, that was the meme. Over and over. And I forgot that was a meme. That was a meme from 1 year ago. Do you remember Tiger King memes?
Yes. They all have their day in the sun.
And but look now at The Mandalorian, week by week schedule. We still got Grogu. We still got Baby Yoda over and over. Like, the character is still around, and in the sense of the meme, pop culture subconscious. And it's like
They beat it into your
that
head.
weekly. Yeah, they definitely do. And like, I loved Cobra Kai. That was one I never binge watched shows. I binge watched season 3 in a day.
My friends,
never done
my
that.
friend's old roommate's in that show. I can't remember which character he is, but he's my one of my good friends lived with a guy who's one of the actors in the show.
A friend of mine also, he lived with what's his name briefly. The one from did you see season 1 and 2?
No.
Do you know the movie Richard Jewell?
Yes. It's newer,
My friend used
right?
to live with the main actor from that movie.
Oh, cool. That's funny.
Buddy of mine, comedian Sean Carlucci. So Sean gets
Shout
a
out,
shout out right
Sean.
now. But
Wow,
it's
that
just
was,
wild
yeah,
that.
good ride.
But it's like I said, I loved Cobra Kai, but the problem is that's going to be one of those shows we have to wait an entire year now for the next season, and the discussion of it is going to fade away and disappear.
Yes.
And it's like, it's already at that point. Everyone forgot about Cobra Kai, and we're
Yes.
on to the next thing. What is the next big Netflix event
We're
show?
hungry.
Yeah. And like, I will admit though, I've never seen Karate Kid Part 2, 3, Next Karate Kid,
Sure.
or the Jaden Smith one. I just ordered all of them so I can
Nice.
watch them,
Oh,
so I can be able to
here's-
experience.
There's one thing I forgot from the show
What's up?
that upset me. I'm not going to say blew my mind. It's too soon. He says, "Oh, my wife's flying saucers," which is a funny reference to the way her magic works a lot in the comics and even in the show. But then she responds with, "My husband and his indestructible head," which upset me greatly.
I posted a meme of that
It upset
on the
me.
Facebook page.
I liked it because it shows right off the bat that she's not living in reality, right? Where it's like she's completely removed, like he can't die from that. But it was so unsettling to hear. She said it like a joke, but at the same time, her husband was brutally murdered in front of her. And so it was that was in my mind, honest to God, top 3 most unsettling moments of the show so far for me. It just hit
Really?
me. It was just because it was so not tense. It was not delivered in any sort of upsetting way. But imagine if this
It's
was
gallows humor.
imagine in real life that kind of joke. It is definitely gallows humor, but it's clearly not something that's humorous to her given the way she's reacting.
I heard somebody say that it was a sex joke, and I'm just like, no, it's not.
It's his little fucking head smashed into the dirt before the snap, clearly.
Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, stay tuned for next week's episode.
We'll be
for the
releasing them.
Marvelists.
We'll be releasing them on Saturday nights on Patreon. If you're not subscribed, Sunday morning you'll be getting, or Sunday in the afternoon you'll be getting the updates pretty much as fast as we can get them out to you after we watch the episodes ourselves. So thanks.
Absolutely. So for the Marvelists, I'm Peter Melnick,
And I'm John Sherburne. Excelsior.
and flame on.
And I don't eat food.